Awesome.
Hello, everyone. I am here today with Steven from Plana, a social media tool. Sounds fantastic. It's clearly super early. I think one of the things I love about these pitch deck clinic sessions is that each pitch deck tells a story. And in that story, you know, you're trying to tease out the desires, the goals, the vision of the founder. How is it coming through in the deck? What things are sitting behind the story? So let's dive into today. Let's have a look at what Plana's up to and what Steven's up to. Let's tease out from the deck the cool things. So before we dive in, Steven, over to you. Do you want to say a few words, maybe like a minute or less, pitch what Plana is? Because sometimes the delta between the pitch and the deck is quite interesting to explore. So over to you.
Thank you, Anthony, and thanks for having me on today. It's really exciting to go through the deck. So what Plana is a social media management tool. So typically, a company would have at least 4 social media accounts. So that's your Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, Pinterest, TikTok. There's so many out there. And the problem with it at the moment is that it's very hard to create content and keep them all up to date, which is something that is quite essential within marketing. So what Plana is hoping to do is to save you time rather than having to go onto each of these individual platforms, keep on top of comments, keep on top of your content. It's all aggregated into one place and you can create content from there. You can post it to everywhere you need it to be. And it's just going to save you time and a lot of effort and headache.
All right, sounds great. And obviously it's a huge market, which we'll see per your deck. There's also a lot of competition between Hootsuite and others. If you build what you say, I'm certainly interested. At SeedLegals, we use a bunch of tools, and I don't even remember which our social media team use, but I know over the years I've looked at Hootsuite and others, and I don't think any of them I found as quite ideal. So if you have something, that's quite interesting. So I'll say at the front, at the beginning for everyone, you know, it's super early stage for Plana. So as we go through the deck, I think that will become apparent. And so as we tease out the story, we'll then see, you know, that really at this early stage, you're looking for feedback, I guess, on shaping the proposition and the pricing and the valuation and how much to raise. All right, so excellent. So I love the graphics. It's bright, it's cheerful, it's really good. First small observation. On the first page, you've got some personal email address that makes it look like it's really early stage. So you really want to have your company email there or something that aligns with the company name, because that's the first thing the investor will pick up on. And remember that an investor, like the astute viewer of this show, is going to be looking for meaning from every word on the page. So every graphic, every word, you're going to be trying to parse the signal and the noise. And so the first thing is social media management made easy. All right. Increase productivity with your social media marketing. Okay. So I think I broadly understand what it is. And I'd probably over here, instead of director, I'd probably put founder, which is, you know, the startup buzzword, and founder and CEO. Hard to be CEO of a one-person company. Well, it's a great title, but still. Okay, slide 2, the problem page. So very nice, you've immediately jumped to the problem. But I don't think you've got the problem the right way around. So let's have a look at the problem statement. So when I look at the problem statement, I'm channeling D, our social media manager at SeedLegals. So in my mind, I'm picturing D going to your website or going to the deck, going, what's the problem? But the problem space here is different. So I think you're really diving into the problem for the industry or for you versus your competitors. And I think you should, in fact, be using this page to show the problem that you're solving for a user, which is, you know, current tools don't do X. I don't have time in the day to do this. I need to schedule something, whatever it might be. So, you know, although you're talking to an investor, not a customer, I think investors in their mind are trying to figure out what would a customer see from this proposition. And if you speak about it as a customer proposition, I think it becomes easier to get from an investor point of view. Right. So let's take a very quick look at these points. So lack required features, we'll get back to that shortly when we look at the investors. Yeah. Working, okay, multiple clients and so on. Solutions are, I'd probably say inflexible rather than unflexible, but still. So I think the problem statement, again, is probably a little bit sort of industry-centric rather than customer-centric, which is always what I propose. So how you help? Glorious graphics.
Thank you.
I think how you help, again, is I think talking about what you do rather than solving the problem. So the simple pricing plan is the sort of secondary thing. I'm going to use you, not because I want a simple pricing plan. I'm going to use you because I want some feature. And by the way, the fact you've got a simple pricing plan is great. I mean, that would be a reason to not use you. So manage multiple accounts. I would take that as read for a social media tool. Collaboration tools. I'd probably say that that's the main thing to tease out here. How might you use it? So, I would see this page. It's the one-stop tool to go in the morning to post things, schedule posts at any time, get feedback. In other words, the things that users will get. And then I think the investor goes, oh, right, we need one of those as well. Dude, I'm in, can I use this? And now you've got the engaged audience. Okay, next slide. Tech overview. It says tech overview. I would probably expect to see some details of a tech stack at this point. So, we already know that it's super early stage. So I would probably think maybe you're better off without this slide, or, put enough tech in there that it lives up to its name, or, change the title. How it works maybe is the better one, which is I input some content, interconnect it with as many social platforms as you have. We spit out the content at a date and time you choose. We give you feedback. So maybe showing a feedback loop. So I think the slide to be here probably needs to have more to it. And this is where I think from the story of a deck is you go from what the user need is to how you're solving it. And I think this is how you solve it, right? Showing the integration, what the user does, how you give them feedback, and so on.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so next slide, market validation. All right, so I think on this one, I think it's really nice that you've got Hootsuite and Buffer, the two things that probably most people would know. I think the way I started reading this when I did my research last night, as I was a bit confused because the Hootsuite and Buffer are in small gray letters at the bottom. So I first said 15 million users, 300 million a month revenue. I went, oh my God, is that your revenue projection? Then I went, no, wait, that's the market size. So I think this is about the market size. So I would probably show that this is, $1 billion a year or however many billions a year. Market opportunity, and then maybe a sort of pie chart showing the current ones or something like that. So it jumps out as this is the size of the market and these are the main players maybe. So I think you've got, good stuff here, but because you've got, millions of users in big letters and the company in the small letters, I felt slightly misled when I started reading it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So next slide, business model. All right, so now this one actually surprised me because on the previous slide, you made it clear when I do the numbers, it's $20 per month that both of your main players are charging. I get to your slide and you're charging £3, so $5 a month. So the question is, why are you so much cheaper? And that could be either you want to gain market share or your product is, simpler or something like that. But I thought you'd sort of demonstrated that companies are willing to pay $20 a month, but then you're going to charge them a lot less, which might be, I perceive as either a good thing or a bad thing maybe, but my net is you're probably leaving money on the table by not charging
$20 a month. So, maybe tell me why you did that.
So maybe this slide needs a bit of reworking then, because it's obviously not as obvious as it should be. The idea is that it's £3 per account, £3 per month per account. So if you add Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, you're going to be paying £9 a month, and so on and so forth. So the more you add, the more you pay.
Okay, all right, I got it. So when I read account, I thought it might be per SeedLegals user login, or SeedLegals was one account, but you're saying per social network account.
Yeah, per social network.
Okay,
yeah.
All right, that makes sense. If I add 4, I'm up to £12. I'm not far off from the $20 that the others are doing.
Yeah. I mean, technically, at that rate per account, we're more expensive than Hootsuite or Buffer, only ever so slightly, but.
And how many accounts do you think, or social networks do you think the average company connects with?
So the average company has 4.
Okay.
But with this, in theory, my main target market is social media agencies, and they have typically around 100 to 150 accounts. So we're getting into the larger numbers. But the problem is at the moment with Hootsuite and Buffer, you have your free accounts where you get your 3 free profiles, and then you have a step up and you're paying like $25 a month for 10 accounts, and then you have another step up. They kind of separate it into bands, which for agencies isn't ideal, because as clients come and go, you're kind of sometimes straddling between these 2 different pricing bands. You're like, well, I don't need to pay for 50, 60 accounts.
Okay, I get it. So I think then maybe the slide is to differentiate whether your customer is an individual company or an agency. And perhaps your sell is that, ideal for agencies, charge per account. So here, by the way, an account isn't, a Facebook Connect. It's a Facebook Connect per company that they work for. Okay, so I think you've got a great opportunity here to segment your market into, individual startups and agencies, or maybe you're only targeting agencies. Okay, I'll leave you with that one. Let's go to the next step in the story. So projections. So this is a gorgeous graph. Graphs that are exponential and going up are great. It's a bit strange. There are a couple of little perturbations in it, but we'll leave you there. So I think the social accounts and the users was slightly confusing, but we don't need to go into that. But when I see a chart like this, there are a couple of thoughts going through my mind, and I would guess an investor's mind, which is, as an investor, they want to invest in a company with suitable, ambitious projections and growth. So if your company is going, well, on year 3, I'll be doing $200K a year in revenue, it's great. Go get a loan from NatWest. No one's going to invest, because you have to get a return on your investment. If, on the other hand, you said you're doing $200 million a year in revenue on year 3, you're getting into like FTSE 500 territory. It's unlikely. So those numbers, are almost certainly statistically not going to work. So over here, you're showing, it looks like about 140K per month. So $2 or $3 million or pounds a year in revenue. So these are users, right? We're going to get to the revenue on the next page. And so then if I'm multiplying that out by the £3 each, then I get to revenue. Okay, so over here, very cool. I think since the last one slide did by month, I would think for consistency you might do by month, but here, I think it's kind of clear that it's per year. And here you're doing £3 million in May 2022, so 2 years from today, and a year from today you're doing £1 million. So I think that is a nice ambition. I think it's actually not far off my SeedLegals ambitions. And now the question is, what stage you're at to be able to deliver that. So I think that is a
a nicely ambitious goal were you to have already built something so far and you're ready to launch.
Yeah.
If you haven't built anything yet, then your clock isn't ticking yet. The clock only starts ticking once you've got it built. And then the question is it 2 months away, 6 months away, 12 months away? So that then comes to, which I'm sure will then be teased out in our story, how far along the journey. So I think, by the way, this is a brilliantly perfect ambition for early stage startup, but I think you might want to set it so the clock starts ticking at the right points, and I think it might be too early for it to start ticking where we are today. All right, but let's see. So next one. All right, so now you're looking for 300K. So I think in my 3-act structure that is a pitch deck, I think the ask comes at the end. So the slider here shows that I'm halfway through the pitch deck. I'm on slide 8 or something like that. I think you should still build up the drama, what it is you're doing, and only at the end say that you're looking for 300K. All right, so but now that we're here, let's talk about the 300K. So there are two things that jump to mind. You showed a nice market opportunity. You showed nice growth. So the 300K could either be too little, just about perfect, or too much as an ask. And let me take you through what my thought process is. So I think from the growth figures that you've shown, if you're saying 12 months from now, you're going to be doing £1 million a year revenue. £1 million a year revenue, you may multiply that roughly by 10 to work out a valuation. So you might say 10 to 12 million pounds valuation a year from now, which is awesome.
Yeah.
What would your valuation be today? Maybe 1 or 2 million or something like that. Our stats on SeedLegals suggest that founders sell or give away, dilute 15% median in a funding round, which means you take the amount you want to raise and multiply it by 5. So this would imply to me a pre-money valuation of 1.5 million today. And that would be at the stage 1.5 million. I would expect a startup to be at the point where the technology is built, they've got it live, but they don't really have users, or they've got a small number of users. In other words, it's validated yet. So if I were to discover that you've got a team of a few people and you've built stuff, you've spent 20K of your own money so far, you've got something built, you've got a couple of test users, then I think that's about right. The pieces of the puzzle all line up.
Yeah.
But if you're not there yet, then you might want to actually go the step earlier, which is you're looking to raise 100K or 150K SEIS, or maybe even 50K, 70K friends and family to get to that step. So now, to take me and our viewers out of the mystery, where are you up to so far? And then let's see if this is about right, or a little early or a little late stage for that.
So at the moment, we've not got anything particularly built. There is probably 60% of the actual thing we've got a code base for, and the rest of it is we've got about 50% of the actual UX and UI done for it.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So in my normal, SeedLegals data, which you can find on the resources data section on the SeedLegals site, for a company at about essentially prototype or mock-up stage, it would normally be a valuation of, south of £1 million.
you might expect it's more like 500K or maybe 700K valuation. And the reason is ideas are cheap and implementation is expensive. There's a lot of stuff to build, and that stuff will cost money, and that investors' money will sort of get sunk into it at that point. And that's the delta between the valuation, before you've built something and after. So what you've described, my thinking would be it's a little earlier on, and you might be looking to raise a little less. And remember, it's all about, imagine that your fundraising, you're going to graph, and the x-axis is time, and the y-axis is amount raised. Yeah. And now you want to, at some point, have raised millions and have a team of 50 people building this awesome thing. How do you get there? And you can get there in one of two ways. You can either go look for investor, find lots of investment, and you get there in one go. Or you can go, actually, let's do this stepwise. So I'm going to get a bit of money, friends and family, and a bit more, with the seed fast. I'm going to find some investors and come in ahead of a round, and then I'm going to raise a bit more. So you end up with these little steps that get you there over maybe 5 or 3 increments, which means you're getting money in sooner at a lower valuation to then get you to the higher valuation, which is what I call agile fundraising. So what I often see is founders going, I'm looking to raise, yay amounts, but obviously, particularly right now, times are not that easy for getting funding. And so you may find it easier to say, instead of getting there in one go, I'm going to get there in a few goes and look to get a smaller amount sooner, that I can then go and find my tech devs and start building things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So next slide. So investment use. I really like this slide, and I'm delighted it's there. So all too often companies go, I'm looking to raise X, and you're thinking, dude, what are you going to use the money for? Yeah. So I think it's very nice, and it's cheerful, it's colorful, it matches the theme, and I guess since you've told me you're a UX UI person, that makes sense. All right. So now this page here is the wrong chapter of the story in the wrong place. So I would immediately have seen this as your team. And as soon as I saw, oh, great, the two of you. This is, you're not Christina, and who's Kevin? So I think there are two things here. Number one, I think this comes way earlier on. Because remember, in our drama, you want to show the problem you're solving, maybe who you're solving it for, then how you do it, and then the size of the market, the competitors, how much you want, contact me. So I think this bit has come too late in the piece. And I think also, you get much better value by spreading this over 2 slides. So one of the key things for me when I look at a deck is, if anyone has done eye tracking using Hotjar or other things on their website, you realize no one actually reads stuff these days. People look at the headlines and then disappear off, or the pictures. So here you're competing 2 things for my attention. I'm looking at Christina and I'm looking at Kevin, and I'm trying to figure out, there's like too much stuff here. So imagine this went right at the beginning of the deck where it said problem. For companies, managing multiple accounts is slow, painful, whatever it is. Let's look at some users. The next page then had a much bigger picture of Christina, not just a headshot, Christina with phone at, wherever Christina is managing her social media accounts. Yeah. And then, maybe some thought bubbles or something showing the pain points that she's got. And then maybe the slide, because we've already said earlier, you've got 2 audiences, startups and agencies. So maybe Christina, is the person at the startup, and Kevin's the one at the agency. And having put that at the beginning of the deck, you're now establishing who the users are and so on. So that's my feedback on this deck. Great to see it here, but I would have put it earlier.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because the reason I've put it there is because I kind of thought that it's not something investors are really too bothered about. They're kind of like, it's nice to know that you know who you're targeting, but they're not too bothered about it. But now you've kind of put it in that story, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so it's a very fascinating point, and will probably come out in the theme of my pitch deck clinic sessions, which is that when you are pitching to an investor, in my mind, I think the investors, obviously trying to decide, are you investable? Is the tech buildable? Is the market there? But I think a lot of it is trying to figure out, will anyone want it? And will anyone want it, I think, is established if you show a consumer proposition. So if the investor goes, oh, I need that, that's much easier. So investors are, their companies, their funds have got, social media accounts. If they're an angel investor, they probably run a business themselves and they've got this. So if they're going, oh, this is a problem that I've got and this is a solution, I want it, therefore everyone else wants it, therefore, boy, I should be in. And I think that's a general theme for me, as opposed to just treating them as an investor and giving them, numbers and hoping they buy based on that. Okay, let's look at the next slide. So market plan. So I think here, this one for me kind of fails the complexity test. So I think this slide might work if it's a backdrop to you standing and, in front of a PowerPoint, of course, these days would be on Zoom, explaining what it is. But I think as a standalone, I'm trying to look at the different colors and then, what is efficiency. So I think this is a sort of a mass of words, and I think you'd be better placed either maybe not having the slide, maybe it actually isn't adding value, or since you created it because you thought it was going to have value, tease it out. Maybe it should be 2 pages, or maybe it's called market plan. Maybe market plan is a sequence rather than a quadrant, which is step 1, easy design makes it easy for users to jump in. Number 2, target agencies. Number 3, we're a social media product ourselves, get out and social. So serialize it. So you're taking me through a story rather than my going, I'm not sure where to start on this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Next slide. So competitors. So I'm amused at the competitor one because all competitor quadrant graphs in general have your company at the top right. So here you've showed me at the bottom right. So you've kind of inverted. It's like, it's great for the, it's like, whoa, why aren't you at the top right? So you might want to invert that axis to show me at the top right. So here what's interesting is that you are showing that you're much more productive than key industry players. So Hootsuite and so on, you've told me they're doing 300 million a month in revenue. I assume they have a team that's quite large. I mean, they probably have like 100 devs or something like that at this time. So if you're telling me you're going to have a lot more productivity than them, that's going to be quite a big ask for me to buy into. Were you to tell me that you've got a much simpler offering designed for early stage startups with a simpler price point, or you're going to tell me you've got a special set of things designed for agencies for their unique things, or that the learning curve would be less. Maybe you've wrapped that up in productivity, but my take is, given that you've already told me your competitor is massive, I think you should pick something that shows how your unique angle will win, rather than that the amount of stuff you're going to build will exceed theirs, which this sort of leads me to do.
Yeah, it's a hard one really, because the reason I put productivity is because there's going to be some big changes to analytics on ours compared to Hootsuite or Buffer, but generally it's kind of the Aldi model, I guess, where there's a lot of little changes and a lot of UX changes that are going to mount up to big productivity bonuses. So that's kind of why I've put that there.
Okay, all right. So how might you rephrase productivity
to be something about ease of use or, time to learn or something like that, so that it seems that you will get easier buy-in from me, that your proposition will stand out and compete with theirs. Whereas productivity, I see when you explain it, but it's quite wide, right? Productivity could be this 47 features that you've got, and they've only got 8 features or whatever, but I'm guessing they've built lots of features, most of which I never use. So, all right, next slide. All right, so market position. All right, so this is the standard, feature matrix. So I'd be slightly cautious about this slide, and the reason is, again, you've already told me your competitors, are massive, and so here I would buy into, you ticking all these boxes if you were a team of 20 people already. But if you're not there yet, you're going to have a tough time having me see that you will build these what look like features that look needed, but for some reason the guys that have been around for some years haven't got. So I think every slide deck tells a story, and it's always in a different space. So the story that I see in this case is new entrant, great market, viral opportunity, being in social media, but established players, none of which might be ideal. How do you cut through the noise and differentiate? And in that story, I don't think the new entrant builds lots of stuff that existing, massive players don't already have, is the convincing one. I think there's some other angle that you'd need to go on that one.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So next slide. So team. So of course, this is of course where the story gets to a sudden inflection point. So I think if the story is looking to raise 100K or so, it's me, maybe the couple of placeholders about to hire CTO or whatever it is, it makes sense. Obviously, if you're asking for 300K and you're showing all of these other things you're going to be building, you've set fairly high expectations, and then it's like, oh, there's just, where's the rest? There'll be another slide with the rest of the team, but it's just you, which is of course perfect. Delighted to do Pitch Deck Clinic at this stage. Our goal is to have the story, consistent. So there's not a sudden, oh my God, what happened there? So I think that the other slides should be tweaked so that you set the right expectation. And then I think clearly, since you've already told me, you're the design and marketing and so on, I would expect to see, dotted lines or something for the other people that are going to be there. And indeed, you've sent me another version of the slide deck with some other people, but I think that may have had too many, aspirant ones. So what is the right number of people to show at the stage? I think I would like to see, if not the team that exists now, the team that my money will buy as an investor. So if you're looking for 300K, then 300K, let's say it's 50K per year per team member, including overheads and so on. And let's say the money needs to last for a bit more than a year. So maybe you're going to hire, 5 people. Yeah. So I would expect to then probably see 5 people here, plus you. And then I would expect to see, dotted lines for the ones that will be hired versus, faces of the ones that are already there. And then you're completing the story, right?
Right, yeah. Okay.
All right, cool. So next one, exit strategy. So this is an intriguing one, but I think it's not right to have on a deck. So when you build a company, and it turns out I've exited my last 2 companies, which means people keep calling me going, hey, what's the plan for SeedLegals? But actually, the idea is not to, in my view, start with any exit plan. On a daily basis as a founder, you're always focused on growing the business, turning into a thriving a company with a fab team that's going to solve the problems you were looking to solve and it's going to change the world. If at some point an opportunity arises, you may well want to take that, but I don't think it's right to start off with. So I think by saying exit opportunity on the first pitch deck, I think it's sending a variety of signals. Number one, of course, there's a positive signal, which is for the investor. I can see a return on my investment. But after that, I think it's a negative, which is the founder just wants out. They haven't even built it. They're already thinking of exiting. They just want their money. If I'm investing SEIS, I have to keep the shares for 3 years to get my tax benefits. So a number of things are going through the investor's mind. So I think you're better off without the exit strategy slide. And if investors ask, you can always explain exactly as I've said. You're planning to build a thriving business, that your main players in the space have gotten to their position by acquiring other companies. And if the phone rings one day, you'd be delighted to pick it up and have a discussion.
Okay.
All right. Next one. So why invest now? I like the hard sell. I don't know if that's really necessary, because I don't think you're telling the investor anything that they probably don't know. My reading of why invest now, it's because you need the money now. You've had an idea and you need to build it. So, and also it feels a bit sort of spammy. You might expect to found this on a crowdfunding site or something. But if they're talking to you in person, this would come out in the conversation. So I don't think the slide is really adding value. And every slide, needs to add value. So the next one is a thank you, which is the last slide. So I think, you pretty much nailed it here. I would probably, it's got your details, it's got your email, it's got the thank you. You've kind of put the ask on the last page, which is why invest now. You might combine these last 2 pages, saying now raising, contact me for more. And then you take it from a passive thank you into an active, which will then maybe have me want to, drop you a note and ping you for more. So what feedback, what did you have, what didn't I cover, and what maybe did you disagree with, or how can I help more?
No, it was all very interesting. I think the main thing I'm missing at the moment is, like you say, it's a story. I've kind of treated the investors as just money bags. So actually giving them more opportunity to get involved, I guess, emotionally in the project, I think makes a lot of sense.
I think you've nailed it exactly there. I think that's the thing with each deck, which is how can you engage the investor so that maybe like a good novel, they start turning the pages and, I'm in. And maybe sometimes, the story's not for them. But, if it is, how might you engage them the most? And then get to, the ask at the end. And then they're going to pick up the phone and, get there on next steps and, arrange a meeting and so on.
Exactly. The one question I did have is I've got quite a lot of kind of user research that I've done before getting the deck ready and before actually, I guess it's actual market validation to make sure people want this product. And so would you kind of put that in? It's things like I've got quotes from people on Facebook, LinkedIn, people have sent me notes about it. Like I've got an email list. It's not massive. It's 182 people at the moment.
Okay, so no, I think, and I think, by the way, that is perhaps the key missing link in the deck, which is, you've told me your existing market entrants and players and competitors are huge. I don't think you convinced me at all what you were doing was
different or what was wrong with the existing ones. And I think that is the gap between the first and next chapter, which is what's wrong with the current players. Steep learning curve, complicated pricing, doesn't match current needs. And then you're going to show me how you're going to come up with quite an easy, simple to build proposition, maybe leveraging the latest technology, APIs, whatever it is, maybe the toolkits that let you connect with lots of social networks without developing a lot of technology, so that you can get to, the same position they got to, but they need to spend millions. You can just spend thousands to get there thanks to the passage of time. And I think that's the key thing, because again, when you think about it, you've shown me you have an idea, you showed me that other people are making money from this idea, but you haven't shown me very much about your idea or why it's going to be different. And when you think about the investment sizes that investors make, they're making different bets. And at 50K, it's because I love you, Steven, you're awesome. Whatever it is, here's 50K. Do I get SEIS? Great. If it's 150K, I'd like to see it somewhat more thought out. For £1 million, I want to see that you've got users and maybe revenue and so on. For £5 million, I need to see you've got growing revenue month on month and a few £100,000 a month revenue. So every investment ask matches a stage of the company's development. And so here you're a little bit further along in your ask, which means you need to either sort of dial back on that or establish the proposition.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The only other question I had was, with the market position where I had the matrix of how mine's way better than everyone else, one of the reasons I've put that is because, like you're saying, Hootsuite and Buffer are so big now that adding in all these features that are pretty much necessary to add in is going to be such a massive change for them, and it's going to cost them loads. Should I try and justify that, or do you think I should just steer away from the whole we've got more features than them kind of thing?
I think steer away from it, because for any large company with a large tech team, adding features is generally trivial. So if the features aren't there, it means one of two things. Either actually they've tried them and people really aren't looking for those features, or they haven't been clamoring for them to the point the company's got to it. It's on the to-do list, but yeah, it's interesting. Or, dude, we've just never thought of that feature. But, it's kind of unlikely. So I don't think you should play the features game. I think rather you should play some different game, the simplicity or the perfectly positioned or just the features needed or something like that. The right features rather than all the features.
Yeah, because I think one of the main things I've got from my feedback was that analytics on everywhere else is just awful. And so that's kind of one of the areas I'm really focusing on and doing, like some AI analytics, which would be really interesting. So,
okay. All right. So, again, you didn't bring that out in the deck.
Yeah. So maybe that's
for me, when I think social media tool, I think one place to post, and it goes in a bunch of things, and I can set it. When I actually write my articles at midnight, I can set it to post at 10 a.m. But actually, it's the analytics. There's a lot more to it. So I think showing the key things that are needed is super important.
So instead of going, here's a list of all the things we can do that others don't, we just go, here's actually the best bits, the highlights, I guess.
Exactly. Or why it's not so much even the highlights, it's why somebody would choose you, because it's just the thing they need for that task.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome.
All right. Thank you. It was awesome talking. I look forward to following progress. And if anyone wants to get involved, please hit up Steven. The URL's here, the email's here, and he'd love to learn more from you. And of course, you'll increase your social media exposure by getting involved. All right. Thanks, Steven. Great talking.
Yeah, and you. Thank you.
Thanks.